So, when we talk about like ancient stuff, like the pyramids behind Jarin, uh, Atia, what's your thoughts on ancient civilization and what might have happened on this earth and how pyramids and everything else got placed in certain spots? What do you think about that?
So I actually had a past life recollection a few years ago that I've lived in Egypt. I've had a few lifetimes in Egypt, and it's quite funny because I was actually in a session and I was doing the QHHT, so the Dolores Cannon method. I'd gone for regression and just for help for a few things, and I went in and I had this lifetime as this noble woman in ancient Egypt, but I was about 13, 14 when I went back into the memory, and they were building the pyramids, and I wanted to go see, but we weren't allowed to go on site. So even the lady who was doing the psychic regression kept on asking me, and I kept on saying to her, we actually not allowed, we actually not allowed. So I think that a lot of us who are here now in who are assisting in the awakening and the ascension, we've all had a lot of lifetimes in ancient Atlantis and ancient Lemuria as well. So right now what we're doing is we actually bridging the karmic trauma, we neutralizing the karmic trauma from ancient Atlantis. So we're moving into a space where, as I mentioned, we need to merge in a healthy way with the technology so that we don't repeat what we did when there was ancient Atlantis going on. So a lot of people are actually having these memories come back, especially now. We just recently shifted into a higher timeline last Tuesday with the 0404 portal, and there's been a lot of downloads of information that have been coming through to a lot of people. So a lot of people have memory, but a lot of people and a lot of star seeds are still stuck in fear because they are still kind of like scared and they don't understand and they're confused and they're going through their shadow part and whatnot. And this is why I think it's so important for people like us who speak about these things. And yes, we want to be in light and love and gratitude and compassion, but we also need to understand that without facing the shadow and without bringing that part to our awareness, we can't really heal or move forward. So what I like always to kind of like say is that you can, it's okay to feel sad and and upset and angry and whatnot. Don't have attachment to the emotion. We are not our emotions. We are so much more than that. Observe it, allow it, release it, be grateful to it, and let it go. So I think, yeah, going back to these civilizations, for sure, like many of us have had so many lifetimes there. And I think a lot of people, a lot of clients come to me and they're like, oh, but I want to know what's going on. And I say to them, like, first of all, have you asked? If you don't ask, you're not necessarily always, going to know. They're not just going to, come through. Ask. And then also, like, I think it's really important to understand that we allow this information to come through and it's for our highest good. So whenever there is like traumas or things to be cleared and to release, then we have access to this kind of information if it's our highest good. For me, like, I've learned not to have too much attachment to that either, because when we get too caught into the story of who we were, then we kind of like forget where we are. And the most important thing is the here, the now, the moment, the grounding, the anchoring, but having said that, I think there's a lot of incredible and amazing stories and kind of like timelines that a lot of us have lived and still remember them, and some that still need to be remembered.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to work through. It sounds like, Jaron says sometimes that, the people on Earth, we're kind of in kindergarten still. We have a long ways to go with really understanding life and how we can really live our best, energetic, amazing lives. And as a community, right, stop the wars and the arguing and that kind of stuff. We have a lot to work through with that type of stuff. And but I have so much hope that we can, absolutely, and I see it every day. More and more people asking the right questions. It's the right questions that really get you to where you need to go. Jaron, you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, I just love what you mentioned about, it's cool to understand or look in or remember the past, but I love how you mentioned about getting into the present. And what it reminds me of, again, is shifting an identity. We kind of want to dissolve all the limitations of the personalities that we've had and dissolve all these human constraints of norms of how life is and strip ourselves away and get to our true identity, which is an eternal, infinite, multi-dimensional being. We are infinite, we are eternal, but we are having a human experience in its limitation. But we want to come from that self through the mind, through the body, through the emotions, which is the remote control or the game player controller that changes our reality. But even though I'm saying that, stripping it all away, what I see is we're carving out our own new identity, and it's in our own fresh way, and we're all, harnessing what our true passions and purposes and values are. And what I know, to me, is that probably a lot of my lifetimes cultivated different pieces to kind of come together to this one that are forming what that personality of Jared is. So it's like, bring forward the gifts, bring forward the ambitions, but strip away the limitations, right? So a new identity, but still kind of all coming together to one. Of all that you've done, many of you have went for a long time to get to where we are now. And you've waited a long time. And now is the time. And how is now the time? Well, because of the time that we are in space, the place in space, if you want to call it that. The light is here, the awakening is on, the environment is set, but then you have to step into it. You have to step into it as your avatar self.